I think it's probably going to be the same as all the other Marvel shows, where it starts off strong and then it just peters out by the end, and I go, it's probably better than a movie, but it was longer than a movie, so maybe not better than a movie.
The age-old dilemma of, I mean, it was better than a movie, but not good enough for a 6-hour experience.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence, for I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known, the danger of
the Watchers of Earth 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me as always is my co-host, Seth.
That's me.
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because he got hit by a giant Thor's hammer. And our fourth co-host, Uatu, is here, but is sworn only to watch, never interfere. Actually, our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because he set up... I don't feel like figuring out that joke. I was going to do a whole thing about everybody. About Kamala and her setting up the whole thing so her parents didn't know she was gone. And I was just like, that needs more workshopping than I'm ready to just riff.
That's like your board game complaint.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I just
want to do it.
Tell me the riff. I don't want to workshop it. I just want to do it. Today we watched episode 1 of Miss Marvel, which originally ran June 8th, 2022 to whenever it's done. Well, usually I say originally aired, but I'm reading a different thing and it said it originally ran. Created by Bisha K. Ali, and I guess it's just a creator credit. Kamala Khan attends Avenger Con only to discover that she herself might have superpowers. Andrew, in a sentence or less, what did you think?
So this comes with the caveat that I've been in a bit of a mood today.
Mm-hmm. Always.
I think it's fine. I think it's too early to really say much of anything other than it's different. But I think I've been asking the Marvel Universe to do different stuff, and then when it does different stuff, I go, no, not like that. And I think I'm also just at the point where, like, the Marvel Universe has burnt me out, and I am no longer really able to let it have its fun. I have a lot of, like, stupid complaints that are so just me. Maybe you'll agree, but it'll probably just be me. But they just, like, throughout the entire thing, I was just like, I can't divorce it from the MCU-ness of it all.
Welcome to my world. So I think I agree with you. I didn't necessarily think it was bad. It was fine. It really felt like a part 1 of 2. And I say that somewhat glowingly because I would have watched a second episode if it was.
It felt like a movie. Like, it didn't feel like an episode. It felt like the first, like, third of a movie. And I don't know exactly in what way that is true, because I can't really tell you what about it made it feel more like a movie. But it just...
Well, I think some of it for me is it's a lot of setup.
Let's just cut it and go here, just to make it easier.
Okay. I forget if I had more I wanted to talk about up front, but that's fine. I don't know if I did or what it was if I did. I will say, and I don't know. Do you want to run through the plot?
I mean, you basically said it. Kamala wants to go to Avengers Con, and then she does, and she has superpowers from a magic bracelet.
And that's the weird thing with, like I said, I said it felt like a part 1 of 2. You said it, or I guess I don't even know if a part 2 or whatever, but like it felt like a part of a story, which I know it's a TV show. It is a part of a story, but this episode didn't feel self-contained.
By the way, did you watch through the credits?
Yeah, I always do.
I figured you did, which is why I didn't say anything. When I texted you to tell you that I was done, the credits were rolling and I just left them going because there's never anything in the first episode. But this time there was an after credits thing. Not that it really matters that much.
It was important. My first thought here. So, I think this might have been my sentence or less. I am an old man now, and this is no longer my demographic. Like, I'm no longer this demographic. Not just for the MCU, but like
youth
this
culture.
Is like teenage angst movie or show. And I think everybody does a really good job. But I'm like past the point where I can watch people dribble a basketball down the hall and it feels so weird. And like you were talking about, like, you're going to get into your petty bullshit, and this is my petty bullshit, where I watched that, and it just felt so, I know it's a show, I know it is silver screen magic, but there's something about that. And, I mean, we went to suburban high school, so, like, I just don't feel like people dribble basketballs down halls in schools.
You mentioned that back when we did the Power Rangers podcast.
And it feels so weird. And it like immediately takes me out of it because it just feels like it immediately off the bat feels fake to me.
Can I tell you what immediately like ripped me straight the fuck out of this show?
Yeah.
It's like, but less fun. It's like the Rogers musical, where I watch all of this Avengers crap happening and I go, this is for the fans watching the show, not for people within this universe. And it is a nitpick on my part, but there is so much of this stuff where I was just like, this doesn't make sense. This is for people who watch the movies, not for the people who live in the universe.
And so we have talked about, I feel like we've at least touched on this every now and then. I know I talk about it a lot, but I know that Kevin Feige doesn't. I know he doesn't care because we've spent so much time after Endgame and nobody cares to address it. But there is a giant elephant in the MCU that is huge things have happened. And I guess people just live their lives as if nothing big happened. And at some point, I know you kind of have to.
I mean, we were in a quarantine just like 2 years ago.
But I feel like she talks to her parents about the Avengers. Or Avengers Con or whatever. And part of me sits here and says, how long ago did Endgame happen? Because and I mean, it also turned around where Avengers Con was something completely different than I thought.
Yeah, it was like a weird...
Coming from people who have tabled at cons and gone to anime and comic book conventions and stuff like that. When she told her parents well, it's a convention, not a party, and then she goes to a fucking party.
She goes to a rave in an abandoned warehouse.
I know. I was like, wait, this isn't a convention. This is like a pop-up party. Like Avengers party. But I just don't really know. At the end, when her mom's disappointed when she catches her sneaking back into her room, and her mom's like, oh, I'm so disappointed. What do you want to be? You want to be dumb old cosmic space warrior who defeated and saved the world and is a perfectly fine human being who took care of business and saved us all from certain death? Or you want to be like a high school kid who likes being a high school kid? And she kind of frames Carol Danvers as just kind of not the world's hero.
Well, everybody, this whole thing frames everything weird. Her mom specifically, they have weird reactions to the superheroes. She reacts very poorly to Captain Marvel, and she's wearing skin-tight uniform, and I'm like, that's the comic book character. And
yeah,
not
she
even
wears a jacket.
Yeah, she wears the same sort of thing that Captain America wears. It's absolutely, and it just blows my mind. And then she's like, you can dress like the Hulk instead. I'm like,
who doesn't wear a shirt?
Well, the Hulk is a monster that rampaged through the city, and no one it is just so baffling to me. And I know this one addresses, I had mentioned before in the Hawkeye show with the musical, how I was like, does anybody even know who Ant-Man is? Ant-Man has done nothing. No one should know what happened in the Endgame battle. It happened in the middle of a fucking obliterated Avengers compound in the middle of nowhere. No one fucking watched
Goku
that.
Goku and Vegeta fight.
Yeah, there's no fucking footage. Nobody knows. In this one, she does say that Scott Lang went on podcasts, and that's a part of the universe that I find kind of fun. It's one of those things that's I don't want to listen to that podcast, but also I kind of wish that existed, because that's the kind of world building crap I feel I need. Although I feel it's going to be this, where it's just not what I wanted. You're so close, but you're missing exactly what Andrew needs, and Andrew's the stinker, being the party pooper, crossing his arms and saying, "No, you're doing it wrong."
I just want to know what people know, and
she knows so much about Captain Marvel, and then she even says that after the Endgame, Captain Marvel yeets off the planet, and they only know anything about it because Paul Rudd went on a podcast. But then she has
not Scott Lang.
She has an actual fucking picture of Captain Marvel, a promo from the movie, on her wall. Plus, she has comic book art wearing a completely different... I can be fine. Whatever. They make these comic books or whatever. But she's wearing the uniform that her mom seems to think she wears that nobody else does because it's not what she fucking wore. And it's absurd to me that she has like all this artwork and crap on her walls. And I was just like, where did this come from? Where did you get promo pictures, like mugshots of Captain Marvel? She didn't pose for any pictures. She left the planet. She didn't have that haircut when she was here. Because she had that haircut in the 90s and then flew off into space. But you have a picture of her with her like shoulder-length hair that she did not have when she came back and fought Thanos. If anybody ever saw her, that's when it would have been. But they didn't because she left. You specifically said at the beginning of the fucking show.
I was thinking when her mom is kind of throwing Captain Marvel under the bus, I was thinking, who's the Avenger that you could do that with? And I agree with you.
Black Widow, I guess, because she has a
I
zipper
was
that she pulls
Black
halfway
Widow
down
and Hulk.
to her navel.
I was gonna say Hulk because he's a monster man.
Mm-hmm.
He's good, and people know. I assume people know he's a hero.
Well, they do by Endgame because remember, there's at least evidence to that because people see him when they go to like the diner or whatever in Endgame, and he takes a picture with the kids.
Yeah, so I guess do people even think he's a monster man anymore?
I mean, I guess not.
And then like Black Widow, who is I guess
Black Widow, I don't even think fits. I'm
she's
just
like
saying, out of
assassin.
anybody, she's the one that you could because I guess she was an assassin, and originally she had like her zipper pulled down so you could see her chest. I don't even think she did in the Avengers movie. So what do I know? Maybe not.
But I feel like the Avengers are wholly good people. I mean, right?
I mean, they're a government task force that fought each other at an airport and blew a bunch of shit up, and then
I guess that's
fair. I don't know. Like, I don't think her mother's reaction makes sense, but I also don't think, like, everybody's hero... I guess everybody's hero worship makes sense because, I don't know, they were public superheroes that saved the world, I guess. But they did, like... They're the same as, like, I don't know... I mean,
There's no companion.
They're troops with names and faces and specific action figure memorabilia.
I disagree because, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. is an American construct, but it is a worldwide initiative.
Yeah, but they're all American.
Not Black Panther.
He's not technically an Avenger, though.
Not Thor.
He is by the time you get to Endgame, but like...
Not Natasha Romanoff.
She is. She's American now. She defected. That was her whole thing.
Yeah, but not at the time. Okay. But...
No, at the time. She defected. That was her thing.
Shut up! So...
Two of us can play this. Not quite game.
But, like, they are fighting... for the world. Like, this isn't here's our troops, here's our cover ops military troops that are quote-unquote fighting for the world by bombing third world countries. This is like, here's our superhero mercenaries that are fighting literal aliens for the sake of the world. It's hard.
I think my problem just comes with the fact that it's weird, and it's not fair of me. But as far as the movies as far as the MCU is concerned, it treats the Avengers as if they are the comic book characters, not the characters that I watched in movies. Not even necessarily as the comic book characters, but
how so? Yeah, I guess
it treats them as the media properties that they are, not the characters I watched in movies. They're not real characters. Every time you see someone in the MCU, like some nobody, respond to these superheroes, they respond to them as if they saw the actor show up in costume somewhere. It doesn't feel... It's like this meta thing where they know this is what the fans want to see, but it's not really how I feel the world would react. Or at least how the world makes sense.
Because this is a thing that we can never know.
Yeah. It's bizarre, and I think some of it just comes from the fact that, like, you have to fill in a lot of those blanks. I feel like a lot of this information wouldn't be known to the public. But if Kevin Feige says this information is known, who am I to say it's not? I'm only going off the information I saw in these movies, where there's no fucking way anyone would know what happened at Endgame.
I just would like to know, every time people seem upset at superheroes, I just don't get it based on what I have been presented in 400 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping off that, I guess, if we're both done.
I had something and I lost it, so.
Well, if you find it, you let me know. You let Seth know. I will say, this is like a show based off of the end credits of the Spider-Man movies, and I kind of wish it had its own voice. Every time they did all the cut paper stuff felt very just Spider-Man.
I agree, and I don't think that's fair to it because Spider-Man was doing it because that's like a teen.
But you can do your own teen. You can do another own teen thing here.
I'm just saying.
I know why they did it. Yeah.
No, I get it. I kind of agree. I thought it was better. I think it like ran through only two ideas and just found a couple different ways to do the same idea. But when she was texting and it was like showing up in the scenery, I thought that was neat, and I wanted to see more of that. Part of my problem with that is, like, I feel like that stuff is going to get abandoned, and I could be wrong, but I can't see it keeping up for 6 episodes without getting exhausting. And also, like, once it starts picking up more, like, I don't know what the plot of this show actually is. I don't know if there's going to be a villain that shows up. I assume there will be.
The guidance counselor is like a bad guy.
Oh, is he?
Isn't that the end credits thing?
That's not the guidance counselor.
I thought it was. I thought they were in like some teacher's lounge. He looked like him.
No, because the guidance counselor, I thought.
Then whoever is at the end credits who is like, bring me Miss Marvel.
I thought they were cops. I don't know. I didn't think it was the guidance counselor because he had like 2 earrings and I thought he had like really short hair.
I mean, they can be cops and be antagonists, but because you don't want Miss Marvel to be, you don't want.
No, I agree. I'm just saying I don't know if there's a villain to the. I don't know what the plot of the show is. Is all I'm getting at.
Yeah,
I don't know if there is a villain that she's going to fight at the end, or if it's just going to be teen drama stuff plus cops. Kind of like you were saying about Ant-Man, where it's like, do we need to have a villain in Ant-Man? Can't it just be Ant-Man needs to get away from the cops?
I'd prefer this not to have a villain.
I do too, but I feel like
you need to have a villain.
It's going to because the MCU does, and if it's going to accelerate, I feel like it's going to start jettisoning the quirky stuff just because I don't see how it fits anywhere outside of the like teen drama-y stuff. I don't know.
I mean, it's fine. And honestly, like I kind of said, I don't think there's a full story in the first episode. And I'm not put off it. I told you I watched the first episode of The Terror. And I was just like, okay, yeah, not right now. I could watch a second episode of Miss Marvel right now. And I'm excited to see what it does.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I didn't dislike it or anything. I just don't really know what it is and don't really...
I agree with you that it's different. Not quite as different as I want. Well, and I think that's even a little unfair for me to say because I don't know what it is.
I feel bad that all of the Marvel stuff that does the stuff that I'm interested in or focuses on the kind of characters I'm interested in are the ones that I have the most problems with. And I don't really know exactly what the pattern is between them. Because Black Panther, I had issues with. Captain Marvel, I had a lot of problems with. Eternals, I have problems with. Shang-Chi, I had problems with. Although
I mean, MCU has problems.
They all have problems. But I feel like all these movies that are like, okay, they're finally focusing on a character that's not just like a straight white dude. And then I get to that movie, and then I just go, this has the worst version of it. Like, Black Panther has the worst version of the Marvel problem. That problem has nothing to do with Black Panther. The problem of that movie is that the final battle is like a complete clusterfuck. And that's the same thing with Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi, I think, is a strong movie until it ties itself to some other Marvel stuff. And then the final battle is just a complete CGI clusterfuck. And I fucking hate it.
I will say here that I will not say the line. And I thought for a big party rave AvengerCon, I thought everything was very colorful, very fun to look at. I did not have the darkness problem that I have in all of these.
Speaking of the rave party, how about when they knock off the Ant-Man? She knocks off Ant-Man's head, and then it just
which is apparently like 400 billion pounds. Like, why?
And it has like crazy inertia. That thing keeps going.
Why doesn't it? There is a lot, not a lot, but there is. A lot of problems. As soon as that head falls, I start losing the show.
Yes. It turns into like a weird, quirky cartoon comedy where the head is rolling in the background. No one seems to notice. It like bursts through like a confetti stand.
Thing.
And confetti goes everywhere. And everyone's like, yeah! And they start partying. And I was like, okay, so the head's done rolling now, right?
It busts through a wall.
It continues to blow through fucking everything. Like, nothing can stop it. It doesn't slow down. It bursts through absolutely everything like they're made of toothpicks, and that thing is jet powered. And then somehow a giant Thor's hammer comes swinging down and hits the bully girl.
Comically so.
Yeah. And I was like, that girl's dead, right?
For certain it was fantasy.
I did too.
I was like, there's no way. It's so cartoony right now. She gets comically thrown or hit by this.
And she slammed into a wall.
Well, she holds on. I was surprised she was holding on. And I was like, I don't get this. This is not real. There's no way this is real. This is too comical. And then, yeah, she gets hit. The hammer smashes her into a wall and she just like falls comically down. And then we learn that all this actually happened.
Yes.
It happened. It was a real thing that happened. I will say, it was hysterical when she gets hit with the hammer. It doesn't make a lick of sense. And I wish there was, like, she's kind of a bully a little bit. I mean, she has one interaction with her, right? On the stairs?
Yeah, at the beginning. And if they didn't call out that she was the girl from the beginning, I would have had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they called her out.
I guess when she was walking, I was like, I think that's the girl from school just because it, like, kind of focused on her. And then Kamala says it.
But she doesn't really have a bully. We only meet her on the stairs, right?
She's just kind of stuck up. I don't even know if that's it. She just kind of doesn't seem to really.
I mean,
she's not really
Kamala
mean
runs
to Kamala.
into her. Yeah, Kamala runs into her, and she's like, she says like a thing, and then Kamala's like, "I like your shirt" or whatever, and she's like,
just
"I
kind
like
of
your necklace."
dismissive, and that's it.
Yeah, not make her a fucking bully so that when she gets hit by the hammer, I'm rooting for it. But here, I was just like, I don't think she deserved that.
Especially because she was being nice to Kamala. I thought when Kamala came out with her costume and did her little superpower thing, I thought she was going to get upset and be like, I was supposed to win this contest, but you came in. But then instead she was like, your costume's awesome. I thought I was going to win.
I'm going to hire you for parties. And then she gets hit by a hammer. And it's just, use that hammer hit for me to cheer that the bully was destroyed beyond recognition. But instead, I don't think she deserved it.
The costume contest is weird, and this
The
is another
the whole Avenger Con is weird. Once I learned it was a rave party, I had no idea what was happening. I thought, whatever.
The costume contest is weird in a nitpick way for me, where they're not having a costume contest. They're having a Captain Marvel costume contest following the Captain America costume contest.
And preceding the Bruce Banner / Hulk costume contest.
And that's all well and good, I guess. But this is the first one of these they've ever done. Did they really think there were going to be enough people of each character?
People love these heroes.
It just seems weird. I feel like a costume contest of its own is
you
fine.
just do a costume contest and you're like, you're the best.
And they also wanted everybody to have like their own flair. But then it was just like everybody else was just like wearing costumes, I guess.
I guess it was so they could
justify her putting that thing on.
Well, they could justify putting the thing on, and they could justify doing like the unitard costume and throwbacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, but even then, you could just be like, "Oh, let's do a costume contest," and then, people always reinterpret costumes. It's not like bringing your own flair is something that a contest has to tell you to do. I feel like part of cosplay is usually like, I'm going to do my own little twist. Here's Loki if he was a woman.
Little do they know.
Giving
Maybe
birth
they do know.
to a wolf.
I had a thing, and I don't remember what it is. No, it's me. It's the show, honestly. It's fine. Nothing was so offensively bad that I remember it. Nothing was so, like, incredibly good that I remember it. I just kind of watched stuff happen.
The quirkiness was a little much for me.
I think some of that is just me being older.
The friend being a tech genius thing, it's not really weird. I'm sure that's going to come into play later. It has to. But when it starts, he's like, hey, I basically designed your dad his very own Alexa. But then, later on, when she's like, oh my gosh, are those repulsor gloves? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, oh my god, you made these yourself? And he's like, yeah, pretty cool, right? And I was like, oh, so he made like little laser blast gloves, and it's going to shoot like sparks, or it's going to like shoot a little like laser beam or something.
No, it's a glove with LEDs on it.
Yeah, it's just a glove that he like taped LED lights onto. And I was like, this dude made his own Alexa that speaks 2 languages.
I know.
Hooked up to the entire house.
But he literally just taped
He put spy cams in your house to watch your parents getting frisky while you're in your room.
Yeah, what was that about?
But then he's like, hey, these are my really cool laser blast gloves. Check it out. They light up. You can buy better versions of these at Halloween Town.
But it's not October.
And how about he was like, here's my costume. It's just a lab coat.
I know. You can argue that he put all his work into Kamala's, but I don't know. It seemed weird to just at the time be like, wearing a lab coat, so I'm Bruce Banner or the Lizard. I don't know.
The lab coat thing is also another, like, again, nitpick from me. That's a comic book thing. Not to say that Bruce Banner never wore a lab coat, but in these movies, never wore a fucking lab coat. Not a thing he'd ever do.
He is a scientist, though.
Yeah, but I feel like it's used in this as an identifiable feature.
If I was dressing up as a scientist, would I wear I guess not, if I knew.
But what I'm saying is, this is an identifiable feature of Bruce Banner. I am going to cosplay as Bruce Banner. Obviously, I put a lab coat on. It's not something that flies in the MCU.
That was his flair.
Anyway.
Okay, let's get to the crux of the issue now. Neither of us have read Miss Marvel, right?
No, I have.
You have? That's so nice. I've read a tiny, tiny bit. Miss Marvel is a character that I really love the idea of, and I just have not. I kind of got out of comics by the time she was coming around.
That's kind of what happened with me. I read the first, I don't remember, the first couple arcs, and I liked it. But it was one of those side characters where I was interested in Kamala. in her story. I had zero interest in her super story. The big villain was, I think, Mr. Hyde, and I just did not care about what was happening in the superhero stuff. And that felt like not really the focus of the series, but that felt like the thing that was propelling the series.
That's what makes it a comic book.
Yeah. And I just didn't care. And it was at the time where I was like, I got to start culling my list. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the series that left because I realized I wasn't really looking forward to reading it because I was really only caring about Kamala stuff and it was getting more and more into super stuff and I just didn't have any interest in it.
But Kamala is a character I've always kind of gravitated towards and really liked. I'm a fake fan, I think they call it. With that in mind, I know it's early. I know I complained about it before. I'm going to be stuck on it. I don't like the bracelet. I don't like the bracelet and how it renders her powers, and I don't like the bracelet as like a family heirloom.
I don't mind the bracelet as a family heirloom because I don't know exactly how it's going to come into play yet, and I guess that's something that's the only thing that I'm really
calling it
interested
early.
in.
I understand. I'm calling it early.
This early on, it's the only thing that really is like intrigue for the rest of the series for me, where I'm just like, what is with this family heirloom? Is it something her mother seemed to know what it was, so is there something to this?
Do you think her mom was like a superhero?
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
And she doesn't want that for her daughter.
I don't care for the change in powers. I don't like the way they look. I don't like that weird, like, purple crystal thing. I really like the stretchy powers. I really like how that relates to puberty intentionally.
I like how it makes her kind of look weird and, like you said, it works in with the puberty.
I like the stretchy powers stuff. Purple laser powers are boring. When you were saying, like, it wasn't dark, that's true. But man, are those just uninteresting to look at.
Well, those are kind of a colored blob on the screen.
I did like, at least when she catches the girl, she does make a hand. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it just seems like, I don't really know what it's doing. And it feels like, again, I'm calling it early. Because for all I know, they're going to find a way to relate it to things in a way that works for this story, if not necessarily the comic accurate story.
There's no way they're just going to be like, here's a magic bracelet.
But it feels strange to give her these like weird, stupid, purple Green Lantern powers. It feels, I don't know what its point is. It doesn't really seem to speak to the character. And what it feels like to me is kind of like Zack Snyder's Watchmen. It's seeing the source material and grabbing the wrong information from it.
Yeah.
Not understanding the spirit. And I mean, again, I'm calling it early. For all I know, they're going to find a way to relate these powers to puberty or her identity or something in a way that works for this story. But where I'm seeing it now and what I know based on her powers in the comics, like, it seems to go like, hey, she's not stretching, but she still can, like, you know, grab things from far away.
She can do her powers set.
Yeah, she can do what her powers would do for the most part without actually having those powers. And it's like, yes, that's true, but
those powers were a bigger thing to her.
I've seen interviews with G. Willow Wilson where she says, like, she didn't want her to have, literally, I think she says purple laser powers, like every other hero. She didn't want her to have, like, aesthetically pleasing powers. She wanted her to have like, weird ones that she had to come to terms with.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. It doesn't help that, like, if they gave her powers that looked more interesting, I don't really know how you do this in a more interesting way, but it just feels like the MCU to me. It's like getting the idea onto the screen in the most boring way possible.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
So
I don't know where this goes. I'm going to talk about their plan, or Kamala's plan, to get to VengerCon.
That seems to take her all day to tell her friend.
Well, she has to draw all those pictures on the blackboard.
Well, she was showing them in a notebook before. I don't know why she gave up on... Oh, I guess because she got beans on it.
She got beans on it. No, I thought that was just kind of like a fun way to visually tell the story.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. It was fine. It was, again, I think I'm getting a little too old for a story like this, maybe. Or it's just not... It's just a little too teeny for me at the moment. And honestly, maybe a little derivative of this stuff. But they do like the bombastic, here's how the plan works. And then you're like, well, of course it's not going to work. And it's going to go through each bit thing and be like, ugh. But they're riding their bike to this bus that they're supposed to jump on and do like cool bike tricks on top of while it drives to the Avengers Con. They were literally going to do that, I think.
I know! I thought the same thing. They pull up and they're like, oh, dang, the bus is gone. And I was like, what? You guys weren't really going to do that, were you?
And that's kind of in that same vein as the hammer hitting the bully, where it's just like, you'd think I'd love it. You'd think I'd sit here and I'd be like, I loved all the cartoon elements of it. but I'm confused by all the cartoon elements of it.
If it was a different character, if like instead of her plan, it was her friend's plan, and let's say her friend is just kind of like, for lack of a better term, kind of like the stoner kid. He's not all there. And so he's like, I got this plan, and it's like complete nonsense, but you're just like, oh, that's just Dave. He's kind of a dipshit, and he's weird.
He's just weird.
But like, it's her plan, and at first I thought it was just supposed to be her having fun telling the story.
Yeah, and then they would just ride their bikes to the bus stop.
Because she's like, tells it early on, and like all of her family members have shirts that say I love Kamala on it, and then they're all dancing around, even though she's doing this plan because she was talking about how her mom fucking hates her and won't let her do anything fun.
And I understand, like, the head in the clouds fantasizing.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, but the show kind of makes her, like you said, like Dave, like weird Dave. That's just, you know, oh yeah, you make your plan, you're like, we're gonna ride our bikes we're gonna take our bikes to catch up to the bus, and then in your brain you're like, we're gonna do cool bike tricks and grind down the highway rail and jump on the bus. But then when you're actually doing it, you're just like, I understand, yes, I am imaginative, yes, I have my head in the clouds, but I understand like the nature of physics and how the world actually works. But it seems like she does not.
And I know that it's just there for a fun joke bit where they look over the overpass.
But they were going to jump.
But they were going to do it.
They were going to jump.
It was not like they got to the overpass and they went, oh boy, we can't do this.
We're running behind. Yeah.
It's not like they're not like, oh, dang it, we can't do this. This is crazy. Instead, they go, ah, damn it, we missed the bus. We were too late. We were too late to go do our cool bike tricks.
And I mean, honestly, the problem still exists at the very beginning when she jumps out her window and the tree branch breaks.
Yeah, what the fuck?
She just haphazardly jumps. You can do that.
And the whole branch breaks off and nobody hears anything and she gets right back up.
But you can do that and make Kamala not seem like an idiot by just having her climb out onto the tree and then the tree branch breaks.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can, I can close my ears like her family must have done when the tree branch falls to the ground.
In the middle of the day.
But it was something that's also weirdly cartoony.
When she was running towards the window, I went, she's not actually going to jump out the window, is she? I thought
that was just the fantasy.
Yeah, I thought it was like fantasy thing, or she was going to like run towards the window and then stop and awkwardly climb out. And that was going to be the joke beat. The joke beat's like, look, she's going for her hero moment. And then she goes, oh, I'm not that crazy.
She's like, wait, that was crazy.
And slowly shambles out. But she literally jumps out the window and grabs onto this branch. And if the branch didn't break, that seems like it would have been a great plan for her. Because the show doesn't treat it as like, oh, of course she wasn't going to do the backflip off the branch. Yeah. It was just like, oh, the branch broke, so her whole plan fell apart. It's the same as the bus. The branch broke, and so she wasn't able to do her cool, crazy thing. The bus left too soon, or they were too late to get to the bus, so they didn't get to do their cool bike tricks on the top of the bus. Not, they got there and realized maybe getting on the bus is a bad idea, or the show even going like, hopping mad wheelies on the back of that bus ain't gonna fly.
Like, this is farther, to me... This is farther than just heads in the clouds. This is just a complete lack of awareness.
It's what I've said about the Marvel, like the MCU in general, the MCU movies often feel, and this is like my problem with the Avengers Con and how everybody speaks about superheroes in this versus how they're actually portrayed. It seems to be misunderstanding like its own text. It just runs off of its own logic, what it wants to do. Kevin Feige says it's got to do this, so they do this. And if that doesn't gel with what's happening, that's on you for nitpicking. That's not on them for not thinking about how their world works and how the scenes work.
You said it too, where her plan, as she imagines it, is a bit. We get it. But it also kind of, I had read that interview with Feige about how in test screenings, if people are laughing, they're liking it. And so everything always has to be a laugh. And it feels really apparent here, but kind of at the detriment of being able to understand what the show itself is doing outside of that. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. Like we said, there's not really a whole lot going on.
I really don't know what my 2 put-ups are, or honestly my put-down. Well, I think I got them. I can manage.
All right, Seth, give me 2 put-ups and a put-down.
My first put-up is going to be, I think everybody does a good job. I think the character portrayals are good. I think whoever's playing Kamala, I think she does a good job. I think everybody does their part, and I think they do their part very well. My second put-up is going to be the bully getting hit by the hammer. It's problematic. It's honestly so bad it's good. It doesn't make any sense, but there is some sort of weird juju going on in that instance where I thought, what in the world is happening right now? My put down is going to be, I don't feel like this episode told a full story, and that's wrong.
Like, wrong of the show?
Well, that's kind of a bit, but it's to its detriment.
I agree in, like, post, I guess. Like, fridge logic, when I walk away and I go, and I look back, like, when we sit down to talk about it and I look back on it, I'm like, not really there wasn't a story in this. There was a setup.
Right.
But I don't think that's necessarily bad. But I do think it's, I don't know, weird. We've had a couple Marvel shows that have debuted 2 episodes at once. I think Hawkeye did, and I know Loki did. WandaVision definitely did. And I feel like, I don't know if this needed to have 2
Loki
of them,
didn't.
because I guess you have this hook at the end, and it's not even really a hook, though. Because it's not like she gets her powers and then the episode ends. She goes home, and there's like she does her powers, and there's a whole thing that happens, and then she goes home and sits.
Like, what is the story arc? Like, I know Kamala now has powers, but I don't feel like anything has really changed from the beginning. And that's probably unfair to say because she has powers.
It's the setup of an Icarus thing, it feels like. But, like, it's just the setup.
Yeah, I did not feel like I was rewarded by watching the first episode. I felt like I will be rewarded by watching the second episode because it will tell the other half.
My first put up is going to be, I like the bit where they were texting and like her text showed on the ceiling and her little like star lamp thing, and then it showed on the street, and then it was on the signs and on the windows. And
Can I have a little aside?
Yeah.
I think texting in movies and TV shows is a wonderful thing. I love being able to have these conversations that are quiet and we're like just moving through, like we're moving along, we're moving through things. It's way more interesting than a phone call. It's way more interesting than just kind of 2 people talking. And I wonder if like filmmakers and directors love the era of the cell phone and texting, especially when you think of something like, I remember we talked about this with like Apple TV shows. They all have to use Apple video calling and it's really distracting. But just like, I can watch people text and words pop up on the screen all day. There's just something that works in my brain as a storytelling device.
But I thought that was nice. I did feel like, though, once it starts going up the building and it shows like the neon lights, I felt like it was kind of hitting the same idea, and I was hoping for more interesting bits, especially like when it goes up the side of the building, it shows a frowny face in like I don't remember what the sign was for whatever.
It was like Circle Q or something.
Yeah, but it shows a frowny face, but it's not even like part of the letters. It's just like, there are lights here, and then this light is over them, making a frowny face. And I was like, I don't know, I would have liked it integrated more.
I will say, I think the more you integrate them, the harder they kind of are.
But I think you can still put focus on them. So, like, when he was on the side of the building, I don't remember what it was doing in the window, but it was showing them in the window, and you could notice them. You could see that something was happening, but they felt more integrated into the background, whereas the emoji on the Circle Q sign felt like they just kind of, like, ran out of ideas on how to do it and just slapped it on there. And they're just like, I don't know, make a neon emoji in the middle of the letters.
Yeah.
Second put up, girl getting hit by Thor's hammer.
It's bonkers.
It's so fucking funny.
It's so weird.
My put down is going to be my personal little vendetta against the MCU and its like false world building. It just doesn't work for me. And it pulls me straight out of everything, kicking and screaming. Every single time.
I want like an MCU show Bible that has a chapter on how people react to like the snap, and like people who like Captain America like him because of these few things. People that don't like Captain America don't like him because of these few things. You know, what the heroes have done, both pros and cons that affect the world and how people view these.
I think my big problem with it is, like we always say, the MCU only wants to tell big stories. And even the small stories are big stories. But because of that, we don't get anything that focuses on this stuff. You get background conversations. It's all context clues. Like, you just have to, like, take information and put it into context elsewhere.
Do you know of anything? You're going to hate this editing because we're just never going to stop. Do you know of anything that tells that story of... Like, I think it's a really interesting idea because it's something that we have there's no way to know how the world would react to superheroes. Same way with like alien stuff. You could do all this stuff, but how does the world react? Do you know of anything that kind of explores that territory?
In the MCU?
Anything.
Comic books. Comic books do all the time. You get series or one-shots or whatever that look into the world outside of superheroes.
I mean, it's Gotham Central. I guess I was thinking, like, Gotham Central is very rogues focused, and I mean, it's like Speedball's explosion.
There was a Daily Bugle series that was just all like reporters investigating stuff. I don't really remember the details of it, but like, it's not like that's unheard of. It happens in comics all the time. It's the movies don't care about that because the movies.
It was more of a I'm looking
dedicate...
for recommendations.
Oh, but I don't know. Like this world building stuff, like that's my like pinch point. That's what I just like can't handle. Like I was talking to my brother. He doesn't understand my problems with the MCU and what I get hung up on. But we always talk infamously about him complaining about Pacific Rim and the jet fuel for the rocket fist and where do they get it. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just want to watch the robot do a rocket punch. But he's been watching Justice League, and he keeps talking about, like, how he's like, I don't understand Superman's powers. They don't make any sense. Superman, like, uses his laser beams to, like, shoot down a spaceship, but then he turns around and punches a different one. Why? His laser beams seem good enough. And I was just like, I don't know, Kyle. I just want to see him use his powers. This is not the kind of stuff I worry about. But, like, the logistics of the actual, like, exterior world. It's also the fact that the MCU, like, keeps trying, like, it does these, like, side conversations. It's all in the backgrounds of stuff. You get the like school news reports in the Spider-Man movies that are just like, here's a fun little thing. And it's like, yeah, but why? Where? How? You can't just have these conversations and expect me to pretend that fills in my blanks.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't help that the show kind of...
And that's not what the show is here for.
No, but like the MCU kind of... I mean, the MCU does do a little bit of just like, here's like...
hand-waving.
Yeah, someone referenced the snap. And it's just like, okay, but there is like ramifications to referencing that. You can't just reference it. That affects people. Like, I forget what show it was in, but there was the one show where it was just like, oh no, it's like Black Widow or something, where she's just like, oh, I came back from the snap, and then I was just like in a house that people owned. And it's just like, okay, yeah, but like that, but like on a global scale.
It's answering like the big questions of like people when they're like, what happened to like people who were doing this or doing that? And I feel like something addressed what happened to people that were in planes, but I don't remember if that happened or not, but it was just like, oh, like, you know, if your house was, someone moved into your house while you were gone, then you'll appear in their house. Or like, you know, the marching band shows up in the gymnasium because that's where they were when they all disappeared. And it's like, okay, but like, I don't want the show that gives these answers, but what I really don't want is the show that just skirts past the answers. I think that's my problem.
I do want a show that gives those answers. The show that I want that nobody else wants is like a little anthology series, just like going through someone's life and like, you know, different people you focus on a different person each episode, and it's just like a part of their life about the snap. Like the first episode is just like how someone reacts to the snap immediately, and then like the next episode is like a few days later, a week later, a month later, a year later. You know what I mean? Like how people react to this huge world event. That interests me.
Yeah, I agree.
And it'll never happen, and nobody wants it.
I mean, it's not worth it to them to make those things. I mean, that's what the MCU shorts tried to do, but they didn't really do that. The closest we got was the one about the two people that did like a bank heist with leftover Chitauri weapons. And that was supposed to be like a kind of answer of like, how does the world react to the Chitauri invasion after the fact? And also like, what happened to all the Chitauri that were gone? And you get like the damage control came in and, you know, cleaned up all their gear. And now that's how the Vulture happened. And, you know, these guys got 2 leftover guns and they robbed the bank with it. But it's not like it's giving answers, but those answers only beget more questions. I don't know. It's my own personal wormhole. That's the thing that I can't.
The crux of the MCU is honestly not for either of us. Not to say we can't enjoy parts of the MCU, but like I think there is something about just a caped blockbuster. I mean, like you were saying with Pacific Rim, I agree. Pacific Rim was something that I could just watch. These, for whatever reason, and not just because we do the show, probably because I have a history of comic books, I want these to do more than kind of the surface level they seem to be doing. But I understand that I'm in the minority. People like that. It's not completely flat. You can dig your hand in a little bit. I mean, there's a whole 800 movie universe, which is cool.
It's pretty neat.
But as a story I get invested in, these just aren't those.
Anyway, this episode was fine.
This episode was totally fine. It was just totally inoffensive.
Like all these things, it's usually... I remember the early episodes to Moon Knight were the same thing, where I was like, the episodes are fine. All it's doing is highlighting all of my glaring problems with the MCU.
Are the shows actually fine in the sense that they're getting better? Or are we just getting more apathetic?
I think a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
I think so,
Probably
too.
a little more column B.
I think they are doing some more interesting things and they're trying some stuff. And I think I'm just like, you know what, MCU? I know what you're doing. I'm not going to stop you. People love you. You do that. I'll talk about it for an hour with my buddy, and we'll just keep doing that. That's just the relationship we have, MCU. None of these properties are making me care, making me get invested. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with Interference.
Watcher.
Seth, now that the mics are off, what am I
Andrew,
watching?
why you even gotta ask? We're gonna watch Marvel, Miss Season 1, Episode 2. They don't release titles anymore or ever, so I think she's gonna get her little swimsuit costume. I think we're gonna spend a whole hour getting to her swimsuit
costume.
Yeah, she has like the Muslim swimsuit. That's what it's based on.
I didn't know it was a swimsuit. I thought it was just a dress.
Nope, it's like a swimsuit thing.